If you don't know what your monthly numbers are, it's pretty bad. The business is just an asset. Look at it like an investor. Labor is everyone's biggest expense. Understanding like how many dollars of revenue am I getting for every dollar of direct labor I pay, that was like a groundbreaking idea for me.
Alan Pentz is the CEO of Corner Alliance, a Washington-based consulting firm helping government agencies drive innovation across broadband, cybersecurity, and public safety. He's also the host of AI, Government, and the Future podcast, where he explores how technology is reshaping public leadership.
The company can only grow as fast as the owner can grow. To make a new business, there's a lot of things you don't know about. Well, AI has just made the ability to learn those things so much faster. Every couple of weeks, something new and pretty amazing is happening that powers your ability to create software yourself. Owners need to understand AI from their own perspective. If you apply best practices to businesses, you get unreasonable returns because
today's guest is a powerhouse in the world of entrepreneurs and small business growth. He's not just a coach, he's someone who walked the walk and talked the talk. Alan bootstrapped his very first business from absolutely nothing to a jaw-dropping $35 million. Then, get this, he built it to run without him. Now he's on a brand new mission. As a founder of the Owner Institute, he's using AI to make business coaching smarter, faster, and more affordable for entrepreneurs everywhere. If you're a founder, a builder, or just someone hungry to scale, this is the episode you've been waiting for. Please welcome to the show, Alan. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm good, Alan. Alan. It's like we don't get
I
to
know.
talk to each
It's
other
gonna be a
very much, right?
great and confusing episode. I can't wait
That's
for this.
right.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about your background? What inspired you to start your business?
Yeah. So I had worked, I live outside of DC. So I'd come down here to work in politics a long time ago when I was young and foolish. And after kind of a detour into business school, I ended up working in government contracting, which is sort of like the business of this town, that and lobbying, right? And
Absolutely.
after a few years, I'd worked for a firm, it got sold, and I really just had this itch to, I don't know, I have problems with authority. And I say that I took this other job after my company that I worked for got sold, and they gave me a really bad cell phone. So I'm really old, so this is a long time ago. It was like a really bad like Sprint Nextel BlackBerry, and I wanted the Curve because that came out right before the iPhone. And so I basically was like, I'm just gonna go start my own business so I can get whatever phone I want. And so to this day, I have no case on my iPhone because I transitioned over after the BlackBerry
Yeah,
went the
you
way
live
of
you
the
live very
Dodo.
dangerously with no
I
case.
lived
I
in
couldn't do that.
That's my promise to myself as an entrepreneur. Like I went out there to start a company just to get my own phone. But really,
Funny.
it's like I just felt like in a service business, it's pretty easy to kind of march out on your own at a certain point. And I kind of tell people to do it earlier. You need some experience in something, but do it earlier because, like, as actually a friend of mine at the time told me, you're never going to get cheaper than you are right now. You just get more expensive as the years go on, right? So, so yeah, that's sort of so I started that, bootstrapped it, and then started in coaching. I've been coaching on the side as a volunteer and started investing in other small businesses, and then started a couple more myself, set up my first company to run on its own, and really now consider myself sort of like an investor or coach for small businesses.
Really, really amazing story there, Alan. I mean, what really kind of drove you to go down the automation path for your business?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of felt like it's getting pushed in our face every day. And to be honest, like automation's been around for, I don't know, it's been around for a long time, but current tools, RPA and stuff like that's been around for a while. I didn't do anything with it. I think I looked at Zapier a couple of years ago and was like, what is this thing? I don't know, whatever. And it was really the dawn of AI and ChatGPT. And really, to be honest, it was really when the O3 model came out from OpenAI that really changed my perspective, right? So now I'm using Gemini and Claude Code and OpenAI, but it really was more like a Google replacement until that thinking model came out. And it really made me realize, like, oh my gosh, now things are really going to change. There's so much more you can do, and so much more like to recreate a business, to make a new business, there's a lot of things you don't know about. Well, AI has just strengthened, made the ability to learn those things and fill out, the gaps in whatever you're doing so much faster. So that really blew my mind, and that led me down the road of like using the AI models. Then I started learning a little bit about vibe coding, and now I've learned about automation altogether, to the point now where I'm like I think I have 35 agents running. I've got one running in the background right now, programming something. So it's like my life now. I never thought I would be this, and especially in my 50s, right? But it changed me.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. You making me question everything. Like, is this the real you, or do you got an AI agent
That's right.
talking to me
That's
right now
right.
on this
Yeah.
podcast,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the real you is relaxing back in your office, right, kicking back and say,
Could
"Hey,
be.
you got this, right? I got this
Could
podcast
be.
agent
Could
going."
be. My
It's
Sora,
crazy out
I
there.
haven't gotten my Sora membership yet, though. So I got
Ah,
my
okay,
Sora
that's the
too.
next step, the
Yeah.
video production side of
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right? Alan, I mean, it sounds like a boring success, but I'll guess out there would love to know, was there any ups and downs coming into it and growing the business? Or has it just been always a boring
That
success like you
was
described?
straight up and to the right, and there was no problems along the way. No, of course, that's not true at all. I mean, like I said, like, running your own business is the hardest thing, almost anybody will ever do voluntarily. I haven't run a marathon, but, marathon only lasts for a certain amount of time. This goes on forever. So, I, I really kinda consider my journey as particularly starting in a services business where I was doing the work before for somebody else. I really had a job where I happened to pay myself. And as soon as I had a partner back then, we kind of started out, we did pretty well. Like that first year where it was just us billing our time for clients, I, we started hiring people soon after that. I never made as much money for 5 more years until after that first year. And it was really like hiring people, and all that kind of stuff that made me realize like I had to really learn how to run a business. I'd worked for a business, I'd been a manager, I had an MBA. So theoretically I should have been qualified, but I knew nothing about running a small business. I knew what MPV meant and how to drink beer. That's about all an MBA got me. So, and I knew something about pension accounting because I had a weird professor, but, the it really was a process of getting beat up and punched in the face and losing money that forced me, and actually to what you do, the first step was really, like, understanding the numbers at a real granular level, understanding cash flow, profit is revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king, as they say. And so it was really, like, hard experience. First, financial, right? So learning the numbers, we got over our skis, hired a bunch of people, didn't have enough work. Obviously, that's a math problem at a certain point. And, had to take some tough lessons about staying on top of the numbers and knowing what they are. I say, like, if you don't know what your monthly numbers are, you're driving a car with no windshield. It's pretty bad. And then, moving on to the next leg, you get that kind of solved. And then it's like, oh, well, all these people I hired when I was $1 million company aren't really the right people to run the company when it's 5 million, right? So then having to learn the tough lesson of, you know, I got to move on from some people who helped me kind of build this to a certain level. And now in my coaching, that's what I see. I thought that was just my journey, right? That is 100% the journey of almost every owner, right? And then it's like, how do I scale this to the next level? Getting to 10 million. It's like, all right, well, now I got to stop being the person who is the center of all activity, right? I've got to have people who can build teams themselves. I got to have processes. I can't run in and like change everything all the time when I read a book or, go to the latest seminar. And it's just that like at every step, there's like a set of lessons to learn. And my take is like the company can only grow as fast as the owner can grow. Every once in a while, it'll overshoot the owner's growth, and then that's kind of disaster happens, things tend to fall apart a bit, and then they kind of fall back to earth until the owner gets it through his or her thick skull that they've got to do something different. And, at each stage, there's a different challenge, and they're almost always kind of the same.
Yeah. No, a lot to unpack there, Alan. Like, how are you structuring your current leadership team right now to ensure that the company can kind of scale and thrive while you in the driver's seat?
Yeah, well, for me, the process of getting out, kind of creating an independent business, as I call it, is it's a really difficult process and it's a multi-year process. So, and I think what you hear from a lot of entrepreneurs, like I'm going to hire a GM or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's really not the way to go. Of course, you need the GM, but what you need to do is build a team and a set of processes. So you need a group of people operating on a system. I built one in Order RX. There's EOS. There's scaling up. There are a lot of systems out there, but they need to have the metrics, the processes in place, and the regular planning and monitoring cadences set up. And then I think it's really tough to leave a company when it's like $2 million, $3 million in revenue. That's you just don't have enough money to hire the level of talent you need. You can certainly get less involved in the business at that point and have better people and better processes to take the burden off of you. But you're just not going to be able to afford like the high priced talent that can actually run the company. That really only came to me when I was like 15 plus million, certainly over 10. Right. And then it was a process of not just like handing the keys to one person and walking out. It was a process of making sure there was a team in place and that team could then build teams underneath that. Because you have a lot of people who are like great at doing finance, great at marketing, but can't build and manage a marketing team. Right. And so that I say, I kind of talked a little bit about these phases, but when you're getting into that phase of 10 million plus, you're really at the phase where you're like a gardener of the leadership team. So you've got to make sure they're set up right, they're the right people, and then when they're not, you've got to remove them. You got to weed the garden. And so over time, you do that over a few years, you should grow. And then at that point, if you put in the processes, you have the right people on the team, you can start taking steps back until you get fully out of the business.
No, that makes a lot of sense, Alan. You just got to scale based on the revenue level. And
Yeah.
then I know we talk about this before and kind of learn a little bit about you, but you mentioned that traditional business coaching often lacks real answers. What do you think most coaching framework gets wrong about small business growth?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're all over the map, right? So I think a lot of the ones that are popular are great for what they are, right? So there are processes to have meetings and do planning, but they actually don't tell you how to do any of the subjects within it. And so I felt like, it's great to have a planning process and a set of meetings set out, and that's all great. But two problems I see. One is the AI world is changing everything, right?
Hmm.
So those processes aren't based on up-to-date principles where we could start recording meetings, start having like live links to data that we have, and like how do you process that information to be useful for you to make decisions. So that's one. And then two is like I think business is not it's hard, it's not complicated, right? So like there's only so many ways you can onboard people. There are only so many ways to evaluate your team. There are only so many ways to like and the most complicated part is marketing, right? But there are only so many ways to market. So I think that we could do a lot more on laying out like the playbooks of how to implement things and the expectations you should have, so like I need to get more leads. Okay. Well, how do I get leads? Well, there are like these 10 ways that people get leads. Which one works for you the best, right? So like I think that we can go a lot farther down those paths. Of course, there's some unique stuff to every industry and every company, but say 95% of it is tastes like chicken, right? So I tried to build NRX to be like, hey, let's start defining what all the tactics are and how you decide which one to use. And so it really goes beyond just like a a process to like a how to, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the exciting part, right? With the development of Owner RX, you're making business coaching more accessible using AI. Um, can we kind of dive into what exactly is the kind of the Q&A process for you, right? Into it. How do you make sure that it's able to kind of turn those complex strategic moves into more actionable daily steps?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple things is one is it's based on a lot of the things that I've done coaching and building my own companies, right? And then we've done a lot of research and we do podcast interviews and stuff like that to find out new information. And the idea is we're using a set of principles that we've researched and developed, but we're using the AI to help understand and personalize it to you. And so that's a process of you using the tool and interacting with it. And then the more people that use it, the smarter it gets, right? So it's definitely going to train on not your company and how your company works, but on the general principles, right? Like, hey, if you do this kind of digital marketing, we know, like from research, that you should expect to get a lifetime value of a customer of $4 to $5 for every dollar you spend in acquiring that customer, right? So say in SaaS, that's 3 to 1. In a regular mainstream business, it's probably 5 to 1 you should be looking for. All right. Well, as people use the tool to do digital marketing, um, we can start getting data on who's getting what results, right? So then we can start benchmarking and saying, hey, all right, so the research says you should be a 5 to 1, but what we're seeing is almost everybody's at 4, and that's not good enough, or everybody's at 10, and that's good. Or it depends on what industry you're in. So we have a lot of that data today just based on research and what we know. But the real power is when people use it, and then you can start benchmarking across. Would be pretty cool.
It's kind of like a self-reflection, right, Alan? You build a business coaching tool, and really you can use it to grow your business coaching company in a way,
Of
right?
course,
So
yeah, I might use it.
so
Yeah.
I would love to know what is it telling you about the marketing strategy you should be using right now to grow owner arts?
Yeah. So, one of the principles I put into it is the principle of focus and so this is something that gets said a lot in business, but I think it's particularly true for marketing. And I am my own worst enemy. I know that focus is important, but I also want to like succeed at every marketing tactic that's known to man. So I want to be good at newsletters, LinkedIn, digital advertising. I want to be good on YouTube. I want, blah, blah. I want to be good on X. I want to blah, everything. So my tendency, and particularly when I started, I was trying a little bit of everything, and cycled through some vendors who do aspects of that. But what the tool really is set for is like you got to master one marketing channel at a time, right? And so then it's like, okay, so what's important to your business? Well, for me, I need people to trust me and what I do. So if they don't know me from Adam, I can do a lot of different things out there to have them trust me, but the best repeated exposure is newsletters, right? If you can get somebody signed up for a newsletter and they read it, then and they get value from it, then over time they're much more likely to try something for you, buy from you. So really what the tool tells me is you got to focus. And I know you want to be on LinkedIn and it makes sense. You should be on LinkedIn at some point, but like you got to master the newsletter part first. Right. And so you can go to ownrx.com and sign up for the newsletter, by the way. I write twice a week about AI and business. But
I'll make sure to put that in show notes. Yep.
yep. And, so right now I'm actually doing all this research on how to get better at newsletters. And then I'm actually training a playbook that we haven't finished yet. We're still implementing. But like when we finish, we're gonna have all the best practices on how to start and run and operate a newsletter as a way to build community and then convert people to offers, right? And so as we're doing it, we're building the playbook, and the hope is on the platform eventually, like we're doing this, implementing the things we know, the things we can find out about. But I hope at some point, like we can be a bit of a platform too, where others who know, like say, how to do how to get like your cash flow nailed down, right? So we can have someone like you come in and offer a system, your playbook for how to do that, right? And become not, it's not like we know everything, right? So we just become a place where other people can learn about it.
That's really cool. So it's kind of crowdsource expert consultation
Right.
into the engine that powers owner
Right.
RX,
So we have to get
right?
people on it. So we have to have enough on there that it's valuable for people now. Right. But then once we get the people there, I think we can get even more value from others coming in and contributing their
Yeah,
expertise.
that's super insightful. Alan, are you a TikTok guy? Do you
I
try
am
anything
not.
on TikTok? Like
So
with the owner
knowing
RX that
so
recommend that path?
so I can talk about the tactics, but as a owner of a government contracting business, I had to sign something that I would never get onto TikTok. So we're actually
Really?
the only
Oh,
ones that are banned, or I can't use it on a phone that ever I use it for like my GovCon stuff. So I talked to my team on that. So I feel like, oh, I can't do it. But anyway, I think Sora 2 is going to blow it out of the water and take care of it. So,
okay.
I'll,
No, really cool. And it's really interesting because, obviously the government helped leverage that deal, or at least on the US TikTok
yeah.
side.
Right,
So
right,
yeah.
right, right. We'll see.
For you
Maybe
guys
I'll
to
be
ban
able
on
to
that.
maybe I can get on in a few months. Who knows, right?
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Cool. So Alan, we'd love to talk to you a little bit more about your price planning strategy. I know it's still very new for you on
Yeah.
the owner RX side, but we often hear, if you are going with that traditional SaaS model, the three-prong process, right? We get the small, medium, the premium package. Is that something that you're striving towards, or a different pricing
It's a
strategy you have in
great
mind?
I mean, it's a really interesting so I'm in the middle of trying to figure this out. I'm actually building pricing playbook as I'm doing it.
Yeah, let's know your
Um,
thought process there.
yeah, so I think we're in this weird transition period in software where, people are going from, good, better, best, as you mentioned, right? So that's what I have on the website right now because we're pre-product, right? And the idea would be like I have a good, better, best, and then we would probably have premium add-on layers. So it's like Alan Chen's stuff is going to be another $50 a month or whatever. So, you can add on, and maybe we'll have certain features be premium, like the certain kind of level of dashboard analysis will be a little bit more. So that'd be a very traditional pricing path. But and so I think when we first release after the free beta we do, that's probably what I'd say I'd do. But I'm in the middle of talking with the development team about really turning the output of the system and I'm sorry, I'm gonna get a little
Ah,
buzzwordy here, into
no,
an
it's fine.
agent-based system. So,
Okay.
essentially what you do is you'd say, "Hey, I'm going through this marketing playbook to figure out what tactics I should employ." Or I'm going through a, what's my how do I do financial, um projections and monitoring, right? So I choose, I go through this decision process, say, here are the key factors. And then, oh, we can connect you into your QuickBooks and build you a dashboard based on what you went through the playbook on, right? So at the end of the playbook, you have a dashboard that updates every month, say. Or at the end of the newsletter, what if the output wasn't just like a plan, it was actually a newsletter agent that wrote your newsletter for you or did drafts, right? Or whatever aspect of it, you want it to do. So I'm starting to think of it as the output of what we call a playbook, which is a process of figuring out how you're going to tackle some challenge, is actually an agent that does the activity. And, I've just started thinking about that. I've been using agents myself that I've built using Claude Code on my own machine. But this would be kinda like bringing it to everyone. And in that case, you start talking about usage pricing, I think, because the more you use it, you're obviously using tokens and costs and the APIs. So I think that good, better, best starts breaking down a bit because it's hard to some people are gonna use it a ton. Some people are gonna use it a little bit. So, like, could we start charging for, newsletters built? I don't know. That's kind of an interesting thing, and that playbook isn't built like, how to price that, that's still, like, a big question mark out there. I don't have any data, but you look at if you look at, like, these coding platforms like Replit, Lovable, that's where they're moving. It's all, outcome-based pricing and usage-based pricing. So,
No,
it's
it
gonna be an
makes a lot of sense.
interesting experiment. I'm not sure yet.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. Just hearing about this, I can see real value, right? Even for an accounting firm like mine, to be like, well, if I work with you guys, I get to automate some part of my process that usually is
Right,
very manual, time consuming, and I would want to pay for that result, right, of it every
right,
time. So,
right.
makes sense on the way of
Yeah.
thinking like that. And how do you define success in your business and really personally right now?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I am at a different stage, right? So I built a company that, I can be proud of, and so I think that was one mark for me. I think what's really important for me is, I'm like a learning machine, and I wanna learn and do. And so I absolutely love coaching because I get to plunge into all different kinds of companies and figure out all different kinds of problems. And it pushes me to learn, like, like in government contracting, we did not do marketing really, right? We do teaming and sales, right? So it was great. Now I've coached a bunch of companies in that. I've done it. I'm doing it currently for OwnerRx. And so like I've learned a lot more about digital marketing, and that's awesome, right? I love that. And then but for me, it's about creating it's a vision I have of like I spent so much time trying to figure out how to run my business. I've done masterminds, I've done programs, I'm in EO, I'm in YPO, I've done so
Incredible.
much entrepreneur I've read dozens of books, right, about business, even more than that, right? And so for me, it was like this vision thing where I was like, "Why isn't this easier?" Like, this is you gotta hunt and peck for all this stuff, it's total half of it's BS. Like, how do I figure out how to run a business correctly? And, and I go to EOS and it's great. We used EOS in my former company, the good stuff, but it doesn't answer all your questions and stuff. And then I was like, and then that comes together with AI, and you're like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm supposed to take this technology and solve this big problem that I saw. And that's what gets me jazzed. And, that's led me to all these things. Like I'm an investor in some other companies. And so the other thing we're looking at now is like, what if, what if, okay, so OwnerX is great, right? And it's going to help companies, but it's hard to sell people software. Like they don't want to buy it, they don't look at it, they don't use it. Blah, blah. What if we build software that's really valuable for companies and we just use it? And then we go acquire companies. And if it's valuable enough, then I should be able to outcompete my competition with the technology. So I'm trying that playbook in a couple of places now where it's like, hey, let's not go to try to sell somebody some new ERP system. Let's create an awesome ERP system for this vertical. And then if we can operate our company more effectively at a lower cost and grow faster, we can go acquire other companies and we'll outcompete. And I think it's really interesting to see what the reason you can do that is because now I'm not 100% sure we do it today, but I think in 6 months we'll be able to do it really effectively where the cost of developing software is plummeting so fast. If idiots like me can do it and like with no experience, anyone can do it. And so it used to be like it made no sense for you to go out and develop your own ERP system. You're going to be like $2 million into development and it's still not going to work, right? So you would just adapt to whatever piece of crap, other people built, and it didn't work that well, but at least you weren't spending 2 million, right? Well, now, I mean, if you can do it in a couple of weeks for $200, maybe you try to develop something that's a lot more targeted and effective for you. And does the ability to do that and adopt it then become its own competitive advantage? That's what I hear that, and I'm like, "That is awesome. I wanna go try to do that." Right? That's so much fun. So, that's what I'm doing.
I mean, yeah, I seen news articles of like a 7-year-old talking to like ChatGPT, and he just described the type of game he wants to kind of make, and in 2 days' time, ChatGPT send him all the code, send him how to compile the code, and you press a button and it's made. right?
Yeah, I mean,
And it's crazy.
there's this thing running around, when Claude, Claude Code is probably the top coding model right now, and they came out with an update 4.5, Sonnet 4.5 last week. And then there's this thing on GitHub where people store code that claims if you input it, it basically coded for 30 hours straight and recreated Slack,
Wait, what?
essentially. So basically, this guy said, take this prompt, put it into Claude, and he was able to get it to program for 30 hours straight. And the result was basically Slack.
Wow.
Right? So I don't know. It's probably not 100% true,
Mm.
but there's probably some devil in details there. But I think that's not that far off, even if this case was BS. I actually have the repo, so I have, but I was like, I'm not going to spend all the credits to get something I already have and don't
Yeah,
really
that's
want.
a lot, right? 30 hours worth.
But I started running searches on it. I started putting it through ChatGPT and Claude and asking it like what this thing does, and it's
Yeah.
interesting. So anyway, but I think that's coming. Like even 4.5 does so much more, so much faster than things a week ago, right? I mean, in every model, like Google just put out an agent development kit that helped you do all this stuff that you couldn't do before. And it's just like almost every couple of weeks, something new and pretty amazing is happening that powers your ability to create software yourself. So this is why I think owners need to understand AI from their own perspective. Like they can't hire somebody, they can't send an intern off to learn it. You've gotta dig in. That's why I'm actually doing a couple of cohorts of, small business owners where we're actually building stuff in the class, in the cohort, because I don't expect them to, like, develop their own software long term, but even though I think they should. But they need to know what's possible so that they can tell people like, "No, we're not gonna go spend $250,000 on this because we could just build it," right? And, yes, we need to do this kind of like even just, are you taking your team meetings and putting them into ChatGPT and telling it to, like, analyze the meeting? Because now what I do is I just now I have agents that look at every meeting over time and find the accountability patterns. What are we looking at? You go into your quarterly meeting, you can have an agent that's already told you everything that you talked about for the last quarter. What are the problems? Where are the lack of accountability? What have been the results? And what you should do next, right? So it's this kind of stuff. Like owners need to understand that at a granular level. I think. So
It's incredible how fast it's moving. You're absolutely right.
yeah,
Every month, I feel like I'm getting a new update from OpenAI about some new feature that they're pumping out that's gonna
yeah.
change me. Like the shopping update that just hit, right? They just integrated with Etsy and Shopify, which is gonna completely change the game for millions of e-commerce owners out there, right? They need to get their searches more AI centrified now,
And I
right?
just set up
To resonate.
pulse last night, so I'm, like, eager. I actually haven't been able to check it today, but that's, like, a new feature that just came out where it goes out and searches on, it does, like, research when you're asleep on all the things you've been querying it about, just on its own, right? So
Oh man.
you were talking to it about Greek mythology, and it goes out and does a bunch of stuff and comes back, it's like, "Oh, well, there's all this other stuff I found about it," right? So it's kinda
Amazing,
it's
amazing.
interesting.
The more you talk about Alan, the more I feel like I'm working too hard, right? With all this
Yeah,
stuff out there that
exactly,
I'm not using,
exactly.
honestly right now.
I'm so
Uh,
lazy, so you should come with me, right?
yeah. Alan, before we get into the financial management part of it, I would love to pop you a fun question that we ask all our guests here, if that's
Mhm,
okay. So
mhm,
it's more
of
of a
course.
fun, open, creative question that you can answer any way possible. Okay. So imagine one day a rocket ship landed on your door, and
Mhm.
inside the rocket ship contains a treasure chest of exactly $1 billion. You're able to spend the money on three things. The condition is you have to spend it within 1 month, and you can't save any of the money, meaning you can't put it in the bank account, earn interest, or anything like that. It disappears after 1 month. What would you like to spend $1 billion on
Can I
for
buy
3 months?
assets with it?
Yeah, absolutely. If
Okay.
that's what you want to do,
Alright.
it, be as
So
creative as possible or as
this is like
conservative as possible. Up
This
to
is
you. Up to you.
Brewster's Millions, right?
Yeah.
You're too young for that, but, it's a terrible Richard Pryor movie from, the 1980s
Oh,
where
I see.
he has to spend $30 million in 30 days, and like
Well, I'm
what
giving
like
you
that.
$1 billion with inflation and everything. I think you need it.
All right. So I'm gonna buy assets, right? Because if I
Sure.
lose the money in a
Yep.
month, but I can keep a hard
You can keep the
asset.
asset. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so if I buy all Bitcoin, I'm gonna move the Bitcoin market, right? So I think I would put some in there, and
Okay.
then I would
Cool.
buy what could I buy fast for the billion? Because I have to close in 30 days, right?
Absolutely. Everything had to happen in 30 days.
Yeah. So I definitely want like there's definitely got to be a couple of pieces of property that are worth like 100 million. So like
Mm,
personal
mm.
property.
Sure.
Maybe you put 100 million into Bitcoin. You do
Yep.
like a couple of pieces of
Couple
property.
mansions. Yep.
There's got to be like a multifamily. I don't know if I could close in 30 days. That would be the question. Could I close
I
a
think
multifamily
if you throw enough closing costs money there, I'm sure
that you
they'll
could get
figure
it
out.
done? You could
I'm
get
sure
it
they'll
done.
figure
All
it
right.
out, right? And like,
All
hey,
right.
I'm
So I'm
giving you
gonna
extra
build
30K. You're gonna figure this out,
right.
right?
There's got to be an Italian estate in there somewhere. But so I think I'd probably buy commercial property.
Okay.
That's probably the most
That's
liquid.
one. Yep.
You know, I'd buy some personal. Probably put something into. Maybe you just put it in like stable coin if you could buy. I wonder how much it would move because stable coin wouldn't move the market, right?
Right. Because it's
Um,
yeah.
so I'd probably do some stable coin if that counts as an asset.
Sure. Sure.
Um, and then
And then one last thing.
oh, commercial property, and then, um, what else would appreciate well? Like, I would probably if I could buy a business, I would do it.
Okay.
I mean, or, like, if I could
Is
just
there a
buy a
business and
diversified set of
yeah.
stocks, right? That's probably what I would do,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Just gotta make sure the money works for you, and
All income
any
producing.
legal and illegal loophole possible. Got it.
Of
Uh,
course, I'm gonna take the Italian estate too with the vineyard, but,
you have to.
that'll be
You
a
have to.
small that'll be like 50 to 100 million, and then the
Yeah,
rest goes
you gotta
in
do something fun for
income
yourself and
producing.
set yourself for the future.
That's
So I
right.
like
That's
as
right.
a CPA, I like the way you think.
Yeah.
Cool. Which leads to our next section, which is on financial and tax management, right? And here at Profit Powerhouse, we always believe that any size of business, if you don't have your financial and tax management done correctly, it's a failure for long-term business growth, right?
100% agreement on that.
So, Alan, would love to know your take on how do you approach managing the financial side of your business?
Yeah, so, I use a lot of, principles from a couple of guys that you probably have heard of. One is Greg Crabtree, who wrote a book called Simple Numbers, and, so his real insight, he's a mentor of mine, is that, labor is everyone's biggest expense, right? Or biggest investment, if you look at it positive sense. And so we really need to understand our numbers at the level of like what leverage are we getting on labor? Like what are we spending on direct labor and how does that relate? How does that affect our gross margin? Right. I just read a piece in the newsletter about gross margin being the most important number in business. Sort of, it's like up there. And then, how effectively are we managing our back office management labor to support that, the SG&A? And so I think that that was a principle that like really struck me, especially I was running a consulting business, right? So it's all people and understanding like how many dollars of revenue am I getting for every dollar of direct labor I pay? That was like a groundbreaking idea for me. So that was one. The second is a guy named Alan Miltz. He's an Australian or something like that. And he's the one that I heard that quote about revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king.
Very,
And
very
he
catchy,
came
by the way.
yeah, and he came up with a this idea about 1%. And the idea was if you could up your price 1%, lower your cost 1%, increase um your like how many days it took you to collect by 1%. And he has like the 7 things that can actually impact profitability in a business. And if you move each 1%, how big a difference does that make to the bottom line? And in some cases, you could move 2 or 3 things 1% and get 20% more profit. Right. And so it was this idea that small incremental changes across the P&L can have these massive bottom line implications. Um, And then there's a third guy I love. I can't remember his name. He was on my podcast. And he had this whole thing around gross margin, and particularly he was very focused on services businesses. And as long as you don't have like, if you have a ton of pass-through costs, like you're a construction company, you have all these subs and you're not really managing them, they're doing their own thing. That's a different, or you have a bunch of materials you just pass through. That's different. But if you're actually managing even the subcontractors and the materials, like gross margin is really important. So his thing was like, if you're at 30%, you basically are on life support, right? At 40%, you can either make a profit or invest in the business. You got to make a choice. At 50%, you can do both, and at 60%, you're cooking with gas, right? And then at 70% and above, you're running a SaaS business, right? So that's amazing. I want to buy your business. But that was another thing, was like just those quick percentages and how much they can tell you about the sustainability of the business is fascinating.
Yeah, no, amazing, Alan. Seems like you're very well read, right, across the principles of
I read a lot
finance.
of books. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of financial metrics or tax write-off you've come across the year that kind of play a
Oh, I'm a
role in
huge
your
okay,
business
so
growth?
tax. I am a huge advocate of solar because it's amazing tax benefit and almost nobody does it. It's crazy. So it's the one tax benefit that you can use really well against, I mean, not the one, but it's the best tax benefit against ordinary income, right? So, um, I set up, I do 100 hour, all you have to do is, like to be a real estate professional that people use a lot, that's what, 750 hours, 750, something like that. Um, for solar, it's 100 hours and you can invest, the deals are amazing. Like you invest $1 that you would have paid in taxes, and you'll probably on most deals get it over in the first year, you'll probably get $1.20, and over the 5 years, you get about $1.30 to 50 back, depending on the projects. And all you have to do is 100 hours a year, and you can split it with your spouse if you put your spouse in the LLC. It's the best tax deal I've ever seen, and, like, it sounded, I was really worried with the, um, One Big Beautiful Bill, but, they got rid of a lot of tax breaks, and they got rid of the solar that you would get, the credit you would get for putting them on your house. But if a company does it and I'm the investor that pays for it, that's still going to 2032. And with accelerated depreciation, you're getting your federal depreciation 100% in the first year. It's amazing. There's a bunch of people out there brokering them that are really reputable. And I've done it and seen it. It's incredible. It's better than any other tax break I've seen.
No, thank you for sharing that, Alan. That's actually first of its kind. We had never had that on the podcast
Really?
before.
I
This
just
set of
can't
advice.
believe
So
people don't know
I'm
about it.
I'm I'm keeping a timestamp of this one. I think this is
Yeah.
this is definitely something that I want people to highlight right
Yeah.
here. So Alan, looking ahead, I know you have a lot of exciting things coming up with Owner RX. Any other exciting plans or projects you want to tell the audience about?
Well, I've invested in some metal fabrication facilities with a couple of guys that I'm really excited about because that is sort of the reignition of manufacturing in the United States, and their, defense and other things like that. But that's a really key kind of like very, so I've always done these sort of like services, like professional services, or like now I'm trying software, but this is like, they're bending metal, right? Cutting and bending metal. And but it's one of these like very base level industries you need to help, manufacturing. And, we're trying to do a roll up of those up in New England, which I'm really excited about. I think, could be really cool. It's a long-term play because trying to buy metal fabs from crotchety old 80-year-old, New Englanders is an interesting experience, but they are definitely not listening to your podcast, I'll tell you that much. And, so
So
that's
no worries
that's
about
been,
that. Yeah.
yeah, but it's really fun to, like, have a thesis like that and see it play out. They're also great operators, so, I love getting involved in stuff like that. So for me, it's that, and then applying this, I'm really excited about trying to apply this, like, "Hey, we can build our own software." So, like, in that case, we're, like, rebuilding the ERP that these groups use, but I don't think we're going to go sell it. We're just going to go acquire companies and make that system a competitive advantage. So I love playing out a little. I'll probably be looking for more of those kind of things in the future.
Incredible, incredible. It feels like you're so much in the future right now, and I'm so behind, and I need to catch up to you. Alan, I mean, with that said, we're at a segment where we call it final advice, right? If you have to give advice, maybe even your younger self or to someone starting their entrepreneurial journey, what would it be? One, two, or three simple steps to get them started, get them off the couch, and to get them to be more like you, a future thinker.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the key is twofold. So the first thing is realizing that a business is just an asset. It's not you. It's not your life. I get it that you're proud of it. I'm proud of the companies I've built. Um, but I take the attitude that it's, look at it like an investor. It's something that you allocate capital to or not, right? Based on whether it's working or not. So if you can kind of get yourself a little separated from the business, you can make much better decisions. You can set up teams to run it for you, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing is look at it as an asset, as an investment. And then the second thing is realize none of this stuff is that hard. None of this stuff is that complicated. It is hard. Like firing someone who you've been working with for 10 years is not easy, but it's simple, right? It's like you're fired and that's the end of it, right? So um, it if you apply best practices to businesses, you get unreasonable returns because nobody does it. So, like, go learn. And if you don't have time, it's because you're too close to your business. Go treat it like an asset first, then go learn how to optimize it and get the life you want out of it, right? Too many people are serving their business and not the other way around. And so I'm a big proponent of teaching, first of all, what is it you really want to do? And then helping people get there. That's the whole goal. Right.
No, absolutely, Alan. So business is an asset, an investment for you.
It's not
None of
you.
that stuff is that complicated. So don't like worry too much, right? About like you can't do it. You don't know how to do everything. There's AI now,
Right.
right? And apply best practices for your
Yeah.
business.
Go do a deep
Don't try to
research report on
take.
ChatGPT. It'll tell you how to do 90% of what you need to do. Right. So
Yeah,
you just
absolutely.
have to do it. That's the problem. Right.
Yeah, you just have to go do it and not go play more video games, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
absolutely understand that, Alan. That was such an insightful episode from you. I mean, I've learned so much just myself about
Oh, thanks.
how far behind I am, and
I don't
I
mean to
still
make you
don't,
feel bad.
and
Just what's
I still
possible. What's
yeah, but I
possible.
still can't tell if you're really there with your AI agent right now. I mean, that's how like
That's
behind I
right.
am. I
That's
feel
right.
like there's a
Well,
gap.
well,
So
Alan, I
that
offer
rumor still hasn't been squashed, by the way.
I
So
have
I
an
just want to know
AI
you know that.
training for small business owners if you want to be a part of it. So,
Yeah, and
you
that's
can
part
know
that
that.
was the last part. Alan, would love if you have any kind of shout out or promo you want to do. We'd love to give you a minute to do that right now.
Yeah, definitely get on the newsletter. So you can go to ownerrx.com or it's on uh I can't remember the Beehive address. Just go to ownerx.com. There's a subscribe to the
No
newsletter.
worries. We'll make sure to put the
And
right link in the show notes.
yeah, that's where I put out like what I'm thinking about. I do usually an art newsletter post about something going on in business and then something about AI every week. And then I just put out like, hey, I'm gonna do another class or the tool I'm signing people up for the beta of the tool right now for when we're ready to put it out. So that's the best place to find me.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to put all the links to your socials and the link to that in our show notes below. But it's been wonderful having you on the show. And I feel
Been
like,
great.
if you're open to it, I would love for you to come back in a year. I feel like it's
Love
gonna be a
it.
whole new world, whole new AI world that we're
That's
gonna
right.
talk about at that time.
That's
So
right. We'll be in the
um
singularity, right? So
yeah, we will
so
both be AI agents talking to each other at
it
that
will
point.
be,
So
yeah, at that point,
yeah,
it will be my
we
Sora.
both won't even need each other anymore, right?
That's right. That's
So
great.
that would be
Well,
kind of crazy. Well, Alan, thank you so much for being on the show. Guys out there for listening, hope you got some very valuable advice from this episode. If you have any questions for Alan or myself, we'll make sure to leave all our contact information in the show notes below. Thanks so much, guys. Alan out.